here on my end. Bismillah. Yeah, we good? Good. And I'm going to be live on YouTube right now. I think we just hit the start streaming and button, so we're good to go. I was just doing my own thing, coming back home from my most recent trip with Khabib in Chicago. And subhanAllah, my wife tells me, the beast is here. I'm like, the beast is here? Who's the beast? She says, the beast of the Middle East is here. I'm like, the beast, she's like, remember the guy that, went to Gaza, didn't just come back with stories, but came back with a wife?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To what do I feel so lucky. ذو حظ عظيم, like Allah says in the Quran. Kifak habibi. So this is none other than Dr. Mohammed Mustafa. For those that don't know, I have an intro, but I want to pick it up on YouTube. So I'm not going to keep this going too long, but if you want to say a few words, Doc, before we hop onto YouTube.
I mean, it's always amazing meeting fellow Ghazawis.
Man, that voice is a true radio voice.
Yeah,
I love
it's amazing meeting fellow Ghazawis. And, I think the craziest thing about all of this is no matter where we go throughout, wherever we are in the world, we make an impact. They made an impact in Gaza, and wherever we go in the world, we're making an impact. And that's what it is to be Ghazawi. And that's why one day, inshallah, Palestine will be free, because they can't deny us. They can't deny us. So, inshallah, man, I'm looking forward to chatting and learning about a fellow Ghazawi as well. And, the other thing about being Ghazawi is, like, we all have a different experience. The ones in Gaza have an experience. Then you have the Ghazawi diaspora, those who grew up in the UK, those who grew up in Jordan, those who grew up in Saudi, those who grew up in Australia. We all have stories. We all have stories of our displacement. And it's a rich history, and we all have a lot of facets that we can learn from each other. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about being Palestinian, is that we are so diverse, but we are all united under the same cause, which is obviously our freedom, inshallah, one day.
SubhanAllah. So that's very beautifully put, Doc. I think I like the Australian accent more than the British one. And, I'm heading there next week. So
Yeah, inshallah, we'll see you there.
On a tour. So I'm very excited for that. So I think for those that just Ousama Alshurafa, my full name is my YouTube channel. Get on there. I'm streaming. I'm going to hang this up so we can get comfortable on our laptop and set up here. You ready, Doc?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay. So let's pick it up here where it's much easier to... Just going to share this really quick. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Wow, mashallah. Thanks for remembering that. That's perfect. Okay. I prepared an intro because I was learning about you when my wife mentioned to me the story about the marriage. Then I remembered the link and I made it all. But before that, just for people that don't really know you, I wanted, I just put something small together, inshallah ta'ala. Here we go. Bismillah. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. They'll feel a bit like rehearsed, but it's fine. It's just a small monologue. Everyone, today I have the honor of speaking with a truly extraordinary guest. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dr. Mohammed Mustafa, often known as the Beast of the Middle East. And for his courage and dedication on the ground in Gaza, Dr. Mustafa has not only provided life-saving surgeries under the most challenging conditions, but he's also been a voice for the voiceless children of Gaza. Today we dive into his story, his experiences, and the lessons he wants the world to hear. So I'm going to start off with, first of all, something that's to the point. So can you share with us what drove you to step into Gaza at such a critical time, and what kept you going despite the immense challenges?
The first 24 days in Gaza, 1,900 children were killed in 24 days, confirmed deaths. This doesn't include those children that are under the rubble and unaccounted for. 1,900 children in 24 days is more than all children killed in every conflict around the world for 4 years combined. And the population of Gaza is 2 million. Population of the world is 6 billion, 7 billion now. And more children were killed in Gaza in 24 days than in 4 years in any conflict in the world. I think as a Ghazawi, And as a Palestinian, I think all of us, when we were watching those first few weeks unfold, I knew what was coming. We knew that it was going to be a genocide. And, you know, I think growing up, especially when you grow up as a refugee and you watch the dehumanization of your own people and you watch the dehumanization of Palestinians, you know that this level of dehumanization only ends in one place, which is a genocide. And when those 1,900 children were killed in 24 days, I was like, this is it. This is the moment. There's no point in wearing your kufiya as a Palestinian and, you know, having the love of the ummah because you're Palestinian and everyone loves Palestinians. You can't have that privilege and not be there when you, Palestine and the Palestinian people, need you the most. And they needed you the most in that moment when Gaza was being wiped off the map. That's when they needed you to be Palestinian. That's when they needed you to speak up and do something. And, you know, I felt like I had to. And, you know, I wasn't ready to go. You know, I'm a resident doctor. I'm still in my training program. I've got a couple of years left and then I'll be a board certified emergency doctor. So I knew it was going to be a challenge for me to go, you know, because a lot of these NGOs want to take big name professors. But there was something that I had that those other doctors didn't have, and that was commitment. I was committed to do whatever it took to get to Gaza. And while I was in Gaza, I was committed to do whatever needed to be done to help. You know, we were doing 18-hour shifts, sleeping within the emergency
You
department.
entered how many months after the beginning of the genocide?
So I entered, the first time I managed to get in was June 2024. And, you know, I was there at the height of starvation in June, but I was also there when they rescued the 4 Israeli hostages and they killed 1,400 people. And, you know, I remember because we sat there in the emergency department and the whole floor is full of bodies, of dead women and children, of people that are injured. You know, there was a man in the middle of the emergency room who had half his face blown off and he was still alive.
Allahu Akbar.
And we had no painkillers for this man. And, do you know, because we're looking on social media, we're watching the TV channels when we go back to our room. And all you see on these TV channels is you see that they're talking about how this has been a successful operation, that they rescued these 4 hostages, even though they also killed 3 hostages as well in this rescue operation. I'm using their terminology here, their words, but they're talking about this like it's a successful operation. And I'm looking at these bodies and the morgues that are full and children with severed legs that'll never walk again. And I'm looking at this and the world is calling this a success. Our deaths are called a success. Our murder is called a success. Our genocide is called a success. That's when it really, like, it just, do you know, I know the Palestinian cause has affected so many people around the world, but be Palestinian. See how it affects the heart and the soul.
The irony is it's a success from a Muslims, believers' perspective.
Yeah. Yes.
The irony, but obviously, from their perspective, it's the one of the corrupt and oppressed. But from our perspective, you know, it's almost like Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says that He creates these situations to take out martyrs sometimes.
Yes,
but
He does,
as obviously as a surgeon, as a doctor, you know, looking at it even purely from a humanitarian perspective, and seeing that amount of, you know, just death and darkness and you being able to, what is it like just as a real human being, put aside the fact that you're a doctor there on duty, but just as a human being, did it shake you? What did that feel like?
You know, I remember my first day that we had a mass casualty event. You know, it was a children's playground that was struck by a missile, and I remember the families bringing in these, you know, they bring in the blankets and you open the blankets. And I remember the first blanket that I opened, and it was a child with half his head missing. And as I pulled the blanket, I pulled part of his brain out, and I remember freezing.
Ya Allah.
Because it's not just the fact that half his brain is all over this blanket and half his head is missing. It was the fact that his flesh was burnt as well, and you could smell burnt flesh and the heat that was radiating off his body. And this is a child, and I'm looking at this child and I freeze, And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, what is the violence, the level of violence that this kid, I don't know how long it's taken them to get him to the hospital. I don't know how long it's taken them to get to the hospital, but the steam is still coming off his skin.
Allahu Akbar. Yeah, I
What
can hear the
level,
pain.
what weapons are being used on these children? And I froze in shock, and my hands were shaking. I was so scared, so petrified.
And you're expected to obviously do your duty in that situation while you're shaking and
I'm
inside.
I'm a human being,
That's it.
I know.
I want that side.
Yeah, like I'm a human being. Like I'm, like I'm looking at this and I'm saying, like, what could do this to a child? If it could do this to a child, what about a fully grown 6'2", 18 stone bearded man? What would they do to somebody like me? Look what they've done to this innocent child.
SubhanAllah.
And I'm frozen, and it's the nurses that start shaking my shoulders and they go, "Yeah, doctor, احنا محتاجينك. Like, we need you, doctor. We need
Like
you."
wake up out of, you're like in
Yeah.
a trance almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I get up and we start, I just pick up the next child, I put him on the bed and we start. And, you're looking and you're seeing the screams of families. You're seeing women wailing, falling to their knees. You're seeing fathers just catatonic, frozen, as they're watching their children die in front of them. And Jani, in my heart, I'm looking at it, I'm just going, this is my people. This is my people. Some of these people are probably related to me. This is the destruction that we're in. And the crazy thing about all of this is this isn't one day. This isn't a month. It's just 2 years it was like this in Gaza. And you look around and you just think to yourself, like, how can people deny what's going on here? Wallahi, like, the blood, the smell of burnt flesh, the screams. When we have to put chest drains in children, in these emergency settings, we don't have enough time to fully sedate them or give them painkillers. Child is grabbing your hand while you've got a scalpel as you're stabbing their chest. They're grabbing your hand. They're asking you to stop. And you have to keep going. This is the reality. This is the mayhem, and this is the carnage that is Gaza. And a non-Palestinian can tell you the stories of Gaza, right? But when you're a Gazawi, when you're Palestinian,
It hits different.
it hits different. When that child is holding your hand, grabbing your hand, that you've got a knife that you're stabbing through their chest, and they're telling you to stop. Even though I knew I was doing the right thing,
Allah, how can I couldn't. I couldn't.
even though I knew I was doing the right thing, I carry that guilt every day. I remember looking in his eyes and seeing the fear in his eyes. The fear in his eyes as he looked at me. And I'm sat there and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know who's more scared. Is it me or him? Is it me or him? I'm scared. My hand is shaking. Well, I've got this knife. And I just, and I'm sat there and there are so many emotions in my head as a human being. I'm looking and I'm seeing these mothers that are wailing and are holding their children. Some of these children that they're holding are burnt to a crisp. They're unrecognizable. Some of them are missing heads and missing limbs. And they're holding and they're screaming. And then I'm thinking about it and I'm going, why me here?
Allah.
They deserve somebody better than me. They deserve the best emergency doctor in the world, not a resident doctor. They deserve a Muslim that's better than me, that can comfort them spiritually. And I'm thinking to myself, like, they deserve better than what I can offer. And it's the guilt that fills you because there's no medicine, there's barely any medical equipment. You're watching people die that if they were in your hospital where you're from, you could save that person's life, but you're watching them all die in front of you. And the only thing that you're carrying in your heart is guilt at all of this. And yeah, that was the reality of Gaza. And people leave Gaza. I was seeing doctors leave Gaza and they would talk about Gaza and they would give you the statistics and they would, and I'm just like, this is not the story. The story isn't the numbers. It's not that there's 20,000 dead children. It's not that there's 1,009. It's the fact that this child is grabbing your hand, telling you not to cut through their chest because there's no anesthetic. That's the story. The story is the mother wailing and crying and hitting herself. That's the story. That's what people need to understand, that this is a human catastrophe. But you know, people look at Gaza and we dehumanize them. We dehumanize them, right? Because we start telling each other and the world, oh, look how resilient they are. Look how resilient they are. That's what we say. We say, look how resilient they are. We take away their range of human emotion. That's how we dehumanize them, because we just make them resilient, but we never ever step back and ask, what's the cost of that resilience? And the reason why it resonates with me so much is because I am there and I can still feel that child's hand holding my hand and telling me to stop. It's not resilience in that child's eyes at that moment. It's fear. It's pain. And people need to understand that so we can tell their story properly. Because if we just call these people resilient, and if we just say that they're resilient, then what we do is it creates apathy within us. It creates laziness. It creates this this burden on us where we don't feel like we have to do anything. It makes us complacent when we just call them resilient. Because there's so much more than just resilience. Yes, they are resilient. Yes, they've raised they've raised our heads. They've made us proud to be Palestinian. They've made us proud to be Muslims, these people. But what is the price that they have had to pay? And I just felt it was important that when I came out of Gaza that I spoke about this, and I spoke about this from a human perspective. You know, maybe I can't, you know, my father, he's like the leading fertility specialist in the UK. And one day, inshallah, I'll be like him, right? Yeah. But, you know, I'm just a young man. And I'm like, what is it that I can give these people? What is it that I can do? You know, I can go out there and I can do research papers and talk about the type of injuries and this, that, and the other. But I'm a Gazawi. I'm Palestinian. I've lived the life as a refugee my whole life. I didn't get a passport till I was 16 years old. I lived as a refugee. I've lived in poverty. My father lived in poverty. I've had family members killed in the dozens, not just in this conflict, but in years gone and generations gone by. What I need to be doing is telling their story, is telling the cost of what it is to be resilient. That's what I need to tell people, because in order for us to stop this genocide, we need to humanize these people. We can't keep calling them resilient. We need to start calling and talking about the price of that resilience. Instead of just saying that they are, you know, suffering or they're dead or they died, we need to call them sacred. Every life is sacred. I mean, doesn't it say that Allah, the blood of a believer is more sacred than the Kaaba?
And the one that kills one nafs is like the one that kills all of humanity. So
the one that saves one.
Like saving all of humanity.
But yet we sit here and we just say, oh, they're resilient. 300 dead today, 400 dead today.
Yeah.
You know?
We don't even, because the issue is not that we don't see. Yeah. And I mentioned this on one of my videos. The issue is not that we can't see. The issue is that we can't feel.
Yes.
And what happened to you was a sort of jolt on the emotional level for you. Heightened to an extreme max, where you're able all of a sudden to feel and experience what many of us dead outside of Gaza cannot. Bas kalam. Kalam is something. There's a place for it, obviously. But if I am able to do something with my hands, then it's a priority over speaking with the tongue. So for you, as a doctor, you have more of a wajib and duty to save lives and look at this purely from a humanitarian perspective.
Yeah.
And I like this, I really like this approach. Usually it's not when I look at things, I look at them purely mostly from an imani perspective,
Yeah.
and yaqini but it's like a yin and yang. Like there's an outer way for one to run and operate his life, but there's an inward reality that he understands of the world.
Yes.
So we can understand that, what's happening to a certain degree, but understanding comes to a halt at some point.
Yeah.
And that's where surrendering sort of happens. I think Gaza is, this surrendering, the thing is, every person will be called in front of Allah, and this is the world of rights.
Yeah.
What did you do in this situation, right?
Yeah.
You've played your part, you've done your part, but this message is powerful. It's not just I've done my part, I went, I came back. Most doctors go, they come back, but they leave their hearts in Gaza.
Yeah.
So I think for you, it's about like enough is enough. We're human beings. This is what I understood from it. We're human beings just like the other human beings. Yeah, we identify as Muslim, we identify, but I'm a human being that deserves a chance to live. You look at it this way. But the way I look at it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a hikmah and a wisdom that typically unveils with time.
Yes.
But also there's a reality on the ground with what's happening that calls me to move.
Look, I'm a proud Muslim man. I fast, I pray, I give my zakahs. Look, could I be a better Muslim? Of course, we can all be better Muslims.
All be better, yeah.
But I've grown up as a refugee in the West. I've grown up, I played professional rugby. Like, it's just not something that Muslims do, right? I love a fish and chips, and
Me too, man.
and there's part of me that is English and Australian. There's part of me that is that, and I always felt growing up that I was out of place. I always felt that I just never quite fitted in. I was too English to be Arab, and I was too Arab to be English. And I always thought, and then I was obviously growing up as a refugee and not belonging anywhere. There was always that thing where you just felt like you never really fitted in anywhere.
Then you went to Gaza.
Then I went to Gaza, and you see what I'm trying to do, or the message that I try and convey out there, is I'm thinking about this and I'm going, right, Allah has given me these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
He's put me in this position.
Beautiful.
He's done this for a reason.
Beautiful.
Because when you ask the uncles who have a thick Arabic accent when they speak English, right, and they're out there at the protests, Allah kattar khairhum, and they're speaking at the rallies and they're speaking on TV, it doesn't cut through with the public. They don't understand the culture. They haven't grown up here. And I have. So I don't say necessarily 100% understand the Arabic culture 100% of the way and all our little things, but there's one thing I do understand, and that is the English culture and the British culture and the Western culture. I understand that very well. And I'm also Palestinian. And I'm like, I can use that ability to understand, to break through into the hearts and minds of the people that we need on our side to stop this genocide. It's not that I don't want to bring religion into it. It's just that I understand that our tent has to be broader than just Muslims, because it has been Muslims that have done nothing and allowed this to happen. And we need to expand the tent. And this is why I've come at it from it's not that I don't come at it from a religious point of view. I do. It depends on who I'm talking to. But if I'm there on national TV in Australia, or on the BBC in the UK, or on a Piers Morgan show, or on a major big podcast or something like that, I need to talk in a language that people that are not from where we are, that don't have our religion, will understand. And the way that they will understand it is if I talk about the humanity of what it is to be a Palestinian, and the human side of it is to humanize us.
But that's the purpose that Allah gave you specifically. The Ummah at large has a purpose, but you specifically, I mean that exact role, to be on the ground, to be able to speak to the masses about Gaza, and for the masses to kind of drop that sort of wall initially and allow some of what you're saying to seep through, right?
Yes.
But I play a different role. Similar in general, like every Muslim should play, but my role is to awaken Muslims to certain realities. Like you said something that would never pass in a typical story or reel or conversation of mine for me personally, because I focus on these things that we need anybody on our side to win. This is where I would respectfully disagree that in reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are times also, if you look in history, where we were at the top financially, politically, whatever it may be, but it doesn't guarantee that you stay there. There's a framework in place for this world that I typically teach or share and try to live by myself, that is basically fix what's between you and God, and He'll fix what is between you and the world. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ. This is a formula. حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِم. Now, this doesn't, there's this naiveness also to some people where they either tend to go to one or the other extreme. There isn't that balance of understanding.
There is,
There isn't a balance in deen. I'm not for balancing deen, because I share this, say deen is, in order to balance dunya and deen, you have to separate them. But I see Allah's commands, which is deen, integrated into every aspect of my life. So like we typically hear, Islam is a way of life, or religion is a way of life. So I don't look at them as separate typically. But generally speaking, my focus is to awaken Muslims. See, but you can't fully generalize. And this is what I mean, because someone could hear you and go, oh yeah, so I have to do, no. You have your slightly adjusted role to play.
Exactly.
Just like you have yours. You may be speaking to the masses. Ousama has the Muslims' ears. And also a certain, let's say, tabaqa from amongst the Muslims that speak certain languages, living in certain parts of the world, whatever it may be. So everybody plays their role, but yours is absolutely critical in a time like this, because if it wasn't, like you said, Allah wouldn't have manifested the experience. But you said something beautiful. You said that you look at it, I love this dynamic and this framework, is that my response to whatever situation Allah put me in, that is Ainul Iman. The very fact, this is a testimony of your faith, that you make the connection, that the situation I'm in was created by Allah, manifested by Allah. Now the only question is why? To test you. What could the test be? Your response. Your response as someone, I need to get a message across that needs to be a certain way, packaged in a certain way, and I need to be on the ground, need to do whatever I can as a Palestinian Muslim, whatever it may be, my part. And likewise, Ousama as a da'iyah does his part with the Muslim demographic to wake them up. And then you have the activists. I'm not as good on the ground carrying banners and yelling out loud. I play a different, but I'm there to support. You see what I'm saying? That's beautiful, man. Like I did prepare some questions that I didn't want to miss out on. Many people see only headlines. What is one reality about the situation in Gaza that you think the world is not hearing about enough, or seeing even, that maybe you've experienced? A nuance hick of types.
Like I said, I used to walk home from work to go to my uncle's house. Now, you're meant to go to the safe house, or you're meant to stay in the hospital.
Okay.
You're not meant to walk 30 minutes through a war zone.
Of course not.
Right? But I'm doing that every single day to go to my uncle's house. And I remember as I was walking home, an ambulance came and stopped. There was a paramedic. And he was like, "Yeah, doctor, where رايح? تعال اركب معاي." Like, he was like, "Where are you going? Come ride with me." And this paramedic was like, laughing and joking. And he was going to me, "Come on, let's go get you a coffee, and I'll get you a chocolate bar." And at the minute, at the time, the markets are scarce because we're in a blockade, right? And he's laughing and joking. And, I was there when they just retrieved the bodies of those 15 paramedics, literally the day before. And I'm just watching him smiling and laughing and joking and, pointing, and goes, "Oh yeah, this was a really beautiful house back in the day and it's just rubble now." And I said to him, "You're not scared? مش خايف?" And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, doctor, we're already dead. We're already dead."
Wow.
And
That's powerful.
You know, when I took a step back and I was just like, what does he mean by already dead? And I'm looking at him and he is not anxious. I'm anxious because I can hear the drones overhead and I don't know if we're going to get bombed or not. You know, there's always that fear every time I'm walking that something could happen. But he's not nervous and he's got a target on his back because he's driving an ambulance. And he's not nervous and he's not scared. And, you know, we learn in our religion, you know, that the destroyer of pleasures is death.
Sakina came down, subhanAllah.
But this man, death was what freed him to live his life. And what I realized was that these people in Gaza, we're the ones that are occupied. We're occupied by the fear of death. We're occupied by all the distractions around us, by the dunya and
Attachment
wealth.
to all these material possessions and status and fame and you name it.
And all of these things. And yet he has got no food here. Death is around the corner. And yet he is more carefree than I could ever be.
I think maybe because his ruh is literally, at this point, he's already like in akhirah.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
as far as he's concerned, he's so like painted the picture of him
Yeah.
getting there.
Yeah.
That for him, that maybe that's what he means. But I'm already dead here, but I'm alive.
Yeah.
where it matters.
But that taught
Subhanallah,
me.
that's powerful, man.
It taught me. It just like you know. I looked at it and I go, these people are living a life and are living in a way where we think that they're occupied, but
we are
really
the ones occupied.
we're the ones occupied, and they're the
Allahu
ones that are free.
Ajib. That's so
You know,
powerful, man.
That was, you know, that was the lesson, and I think that's what people sometimes, you know, have to understand is that actually, you know, Gaza is the one freeing us. We're not the ones freeing Gaza.
Subhanallah. That's so true, man. You know, the heart only has a place for one sort of reflection, God's light. And so now we've smudged it up with all sorts of desires and wants. And we're so caught up in when I'm going to buy that bigger house and that bigger... How is that impact? Have you found that you've become more minimalistic after your visit to Gaza?
Do you know, I never was a person who...
It wasn't, okay.
I never was a materialistic person anyway. You know, I never looked at the world from a sense of.
But even some of the basic things become like after what you've seen there.
I just, you know, wallahi, like, you know, sometimes I'm just like, when you see that much death, and death coming to all people of all ages, including children. Do you know when people cut me off on the road?
On the road rage, yeah.
You know, I don't shout and scream. Do you know, I don't shout and scream. I'm just.
You're like, this is so insignificant.
Like it's just, you know, I'm just like, this minor inconvenience is nothing. Like I've seen people with 3 limbs missing and still smiling and getting on with their day.
And you have a problem with this guy because he cut you off. Like,
cut me
let
off.
him cut you off. Maybe he's running. He has his own emergency.
I don't want the sayyat of like shouting and screaming and swearing and. Khalas, yani, like.
You know, this is one of my tricks for how I'm planning to marry off my daughters.
Yeah.
So I get in the car with the and I have to ride for him for a few miles until he is in a situation. Because it's these things that catch you off guard. The reality comes. You know the story of the babbaga, the parrot that was taught to say la ilaha illallah.
No.
So taught to say la. So the parrot's like la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. So but then the cat came. So so instead of saying la ilaha, it's like the natural tendencies, the mask fall. So that's the issue. We're very label sort of like we just carry those labels and we place them, and it's like, you know, it's like walking into a store. I often say that says, you know, laham, you know, butcher, but you walk in and you find books. And you're like, so, and the guy is like, no, I'm this. And you're like, no, but it's the label outside. You're not what the label says. You're what you're actually doing, you know? So if you're selling books, then you're a librarian. But nowadays we carry the label of Muslim, but the actions are far from it. We need a lot of work, man.
We do need a lot of work. And I don't know. You know, this Gaza has exposed so many of us.
Oh yeah,
we're completely. Can we boycott effectively? Can we organize? Can we stop the infighting? You know, one thing I've learned is just the you know, because I've been advocating, and I thought, you know, in the advocacy space, people are trying to advocate for the good of humanity. You know, there's a lot of people that come for you if you advocate, but I never realized that people within the advocacy movement are the ones with the most egos.
Yes,
You
of
know,
course.
the ones that are preaching the most are the ones with the most ego. They're the ones that have, they're the ones that are the ones blocking you. They're the ones that are, you know, like gatekeepers, keeping information. And, you know, and I look at this
It's a shame.
and I just think to myself, like, yeah,
This has been a thing. This has become a thing online that even some people are talking about online about da'is that are not authentic. You know, they're, you know.
we're never going to be pure enough. You know, I'm just a human being. Like, I'm advocating for Gaza, right? Yeah. But I've never advocated before, like on this level. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say things that I was wrong to say. But do you know, people just, they sit behind a keyboard and this lateral violence where we can't beat the system at top, so we attack each other here and there, you know? It's such human nature.
As long as we come, though, brother, with an ego, then you have an ego. My nafs is different than your nafs. Your mind is different than my mind, different than the third mind. But if we come through God's command, Amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, in this verse about unity is mentioned in the singular. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. You know, not the ahbal, but the habl of Allah is the Amr of Allah.
Yes.
And when you come through God's command, what is God's command? The ruh. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. So this is what is being talked to. The ruh is one, but the nufus are many. So if you come through the one and you hold to the command, the rope of God, you come through ruh, you realize that in reality, separation is an illusion. And so this thing, you become more compassionate, a more compassionate, empathetic individual. And then it becomes like, truly, I can't be a believer until I love for my brother what I love for myself. But it's not really that hard if you understand and see things clearly. Wow, mashallah, you've not just experienced, but it seems like حللت كتير أمور in your head. You've kind of figured a few things out along the way in this journey. What is one of the biggest lessons you've learned? You've spoken about the disunity amongst Hada, and you've spoken a little about that, but what is the biggest lesson you've learned?
You know, the biggest lesson I've learned is about niyyah.
Subhanallah. How beautiful is that?
You know, I was so scared going into Gaza, not because I was scared of death. I was so scared going into Gaza because I just wanted my niyyah to be pure. I just, you know, before you go into Gaza, and everybody, when people knew that I was going into Gaza, a lot of people were saying, you know, to me, oh, good luck, can't believe you're going, you're so brave, this, that, and the other. And I'm saying to myself, please don't say any of these things, because I do not want one of these compliments to get to my head.
You're worried about al-ikhlas, because I could die at any moment.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah, the awareness at this point.
And then when you start campaigning and you get on TV and people know your name, and then it's just constantly having to renew your intention every single day that you're doing this for Allah and you're not doing for any other gain. And then, you know, like say for example here in Canada, I came to be the keynote speaker. People were moved by what I had to say, and then people would want to offer me gifts and give me presents. And I'm just like, please don't give me any presents. Like I would say this all the time, do not give me any presents, because I don't want this to change my niyyah in any way. I don't want this to contaminate my niyyah. I'm not doing it for gifts. I'm not doing it for anything else other than Allah. I remember this one guy, he said to me, he was giving me honey as a gift. Or it was perfume, I think it was. And I said, please, no, I can't accept any gifts. And he said to me, the Rasul accepted gifts. Are you saying you're better than the Rasul? And I was just like, oh God. Yeah. So, but that's always been the constant in this, is that Allah will always find a way for me as long as my niyyah is pure. And you know, I think me going to Gaza and finding a wife and getting married.
Yeah, that's hold on. So that's a whole nother, in the midst of all that we've just discussed, you went to operate on, bodies. You ended up getting your own heart operated on, it seems. How did you would think amongst all of that, that's the last thing that could occur to one's mind. How did that, in a gist, in a nutshell?
Do you know, subhanAllah, like I was just in the emergency department working, and I saw her, and you know, she's been starved. She's living in a tent, or she's living in a destroyed home.
She's a nurse herself or a doctor?
She's a doctor. And the thing that I noticed first about her was just how compassionate she was with all the patients. And in Gaza, a lot of the doctors and nurses have compassion fatigue. You know, it's hard.
بس احنا عصبيين طبعا
we're عصبيين.
We can lose it quick. الدكتور غزاوي شاخر لها مثلا.
We lose it quick. We get angry quickly. And then you think about you're dealing with this for 2 years of just constant streams of dead children. You know, when more injured people arrive, it's not the same as it was 3 months ago. You know, people are even the doctors are injured and sick and starving. But she just kept going and going and going, and there was no lack of energy whenever she would see a patient. And it was just her compassion and her kindness. I remember thinking to myself, like, subhanAllah, what has she got inside of her that allows her to be this compassionate with people, despite all of the catastrophes, and she's still able to be compassionate despite all of her troubles that she's going through personally.
SubhanAllah, that's look, truly, I mean just genuinely that it's very touching. But you know, word of advice, if you know the woman herself is hearing, and then you're being asked, you have to start with, of course, like immediately I fell in love with the beauty and everything. I was attracted in it, and then from there, obviously the empathy and all that. Now, you made an immediate move. Was it kind of, because I had a similar situation with my wife where I just kind of proposed immediately. Did you just get to business, or you took your time and asked? And
I was nervous. You know, I'm not. You know, I'm not from Gaza.
How's the sound, by the way?
The sound is recorded.
Is good? Okay, because I'm getting a bit of echo on this end, so I'm just going to turn this. Oh, there we go. A lot better. Okay, go on, doctor. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was nervous, and obviously, like, I'm not from Gaza, so I don't understand الطباع,
العادات والتقاليد, the
details of how to get this done. So I'm like, do I ask her? Do I go to her father? Like, what do I do? I was just so nervous. I ended up just not doing anything. And subhanAllah, the day that I thought to myself, right, I'm going to go speak to her. I'm just going to ask her.
I'm going
to do it, right? And then we get a call at 4 o'clock in the morning from the United Nations saying we are being evacuated and we have to go to the south of Gaza. And the convoy is coming to pick us up from the hospital at 8 o'clock.
No way.
She starts work at 9, and I have to be evacuated at 8. So I leave the north of Gaza and go to South Gaza. And when I arrive, I go to my uncle's house, and I tell my uncle what happened. Well, no, I don't tell him what happened. He starts complaining as soon as I walk into the house. The first thing he's saying is like, "Why aren't you married?" You know, just general. And I kind of jokingly said, "Well, you know, there was a nice doctor that I was working with, but you know, she's in the north, I'm in the south, like this, and he said, call the hospital now, call the head of the hospital." And subhanAllah, the head of the hospital, you know, because it was Ramadan, the head of the hospital, we used to do Qiyam Layl together, and we used to play Tarawih together.
How beautiful is
So I called the head of the hospital, and I told him about this doctor, and I said, her name is Noor, you know, I really like her. And he says, I know her father. Her father is also a doctor, and he's operating with me right now. So he spoke to her father. A few hours later, her father calls me. He speaks to me. And then he comes from North Gaza to South Gaza walking the next day
Allahu Akbar.
to come meet me, to talk to me before he tells his daughter, because he wants to meet me first. And then after he meets me and he likes me, he goes back, speaks to Noor, his daughter, and she says she'll come meet me. So she came the next day walking again. This man's covered 30 kilometers in 2 days, just coming back and forth to see me.
Back in the days, they'd walk that far to collect a hadith.
Yeah.
They're walking that far.
It's like those.
It must be the eyes, man.
SubhanAllah, you know, it just,
SubhanAllah.
you know, I didn't, like I say, like I married her for what I saw, the compassion, the kindness, her intelligence, the way she carried herself. You know, we're in the middle of a war zone. You know, no one's getting themselves dolled up or looking good or anything like that in the war zone. And even on Yom Katab Liktab, when I still hadn't seen her without her hijab. even though it was halal for me, I still hadn't because of just the time constraints and the bombings going outside. She had to leave. So I literally married her with my eyes closed just because of who she was.
Wow.
And
Look at the tawfiq and the barakah already.
and
MashaAllah.
subhanallah, and this is what it is about Gaza. I thought I was going into Gaza to help Gaza. I thought I was the one going to Gaza to save people, and I was the one giving Gaza. And it was Gaza that gave me this crown, this jewel. And that's the thing about Gaza is Gaza never takes from you, from me, from any of us.
Only gives.
It only gives. So no matter how much we give Gaza, Gaza has given us more.
Mm-hmm.
When you donate to Gaza, or when you lose your job for speaking out against Gaza right here, you think of it as a loss. But look how much Gaza has given us. It's united the Ummah. It's brought Muslims back to Islam that had left Islam.
And non-Muslims too.
It's brought non-Muslims to Islam.
Mm.
It's made those who hated Islam fall in love with Islam and speak about it positively. I mean, these right-wing commentators who are now saying, you know what, I was wrong in the early 2000s when I used to speak against the Muslims. I was wrong.
The Cadence Owens, the Tucker Carlsons,
They've
general,
changed.
yeah.
They've changed. And why have they changed? They've not changed because billions of dollars was put in front of them, or $7,000 a Facebook post or an Instagram post, or the prospects of a job, or because we don't have that as Palestinians. We don't have that leverage that we can say support our cause and we'll give you this much money and we'll give you these jobs, and
nor should it be that way.
all that we have is our faith, our iman, and our truth.
That's not all that we have. That's all we need.
Well, this is what I mean.
That's the
all
lesson.
we have is that,
Yeah.
but that's enough.
That's enough.
All we have
That's
is
beautiful.
that. All we have is that, and that eclipses the money, the influence,
MashaAllah.
everything else that they have. That's what eclipses it. And do you know, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, like, even me, a Ghazawi, who I'm not asking anything of Gaza. This is my home, this is my people, this is my family. I'm not asking Gaza to give me anything. I don't need any. I want to give to Gaza. And despite that, it still gave me.
Subhanallah.
And that's the beauty of Gaza. And that's, that's why we can never ever repay the people of Gaza. We can never repay them for what they did for the Ummah.
It definitely put things into gear, but obviously you also have likes of what's happening in Sudan, obviously, and all over, man. Honestly, I don't want to start counting and
Kashmir,
naming the countries.
Rohingya, Uyghurs, kullu.
And before I, because we have to start wrapping up, what if there was one message that you really like, this is it, guys, if you could take, and it could be something you already mentioned, but just to kind of like hone in on it. If there was one key message that you want to get out there, that people take this, memorize it, live by it, this is it. And take your time.
What I want people to understand is we need to humanize those people in Gaza. And to humanize them means that we have to give them the full range of the human experience. Yes, they're resilient, but what's the price of that resilience? The price of that resilience is the loss that they have, is the fear that they have, is the despair that they sometimes feel, is the moments where they laugh and they have joy and they get married. All of this is part of the human experience. And the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine, they experience that 360 human experience. And we need to be better at being there for all 360 of those human experiences. The reason why the world has changed about Palestine is because these people have recorded the deaths of their own children. Because that's the only thing that moves you and me, is when we see these images of dead children, dead women, emaciated women and children. That's what's made us move to act. But where were we on October the 6th? Where were we in 2023? Where were we in 2021? Why is it that it took that
long?
It's because we didn't look at them as a human in a 360 way. We weren't there for them to chase their dreams. We weren't supporting them when they wanted to have you know, university degrees in Gaza when they wanted to build maybe a beachside barbecue place. We were only there for them in their deaths. That's when we think, and that is that dehumanization. It starts with us to rehumanize them, and once we rehumanize them, then this is why this won't happen again to other people. And it's the same with Sudan.
And how do we rehumanize them?
We humanize them. We humanize them by accepting and understanding the feelings that they have and the price that they've had to pay for that suffering. We humanize them by empowering them. We humanize them by telling their stories. We humanize them by standing with them, even when it's not popular to stand with them or it's not on the mainstream news. We humanize them by when Gaza donations start going down because it's not on the news. We have to be there to support them, every single thing. And that's the same with Sudan. It's the same in Kashmir. It's the same in all of these places. It is our duty to be there for these people through good and bad, not just bad. Because when it's just bad, it's because it's an emotional reaction that we're having. But to humanize them, we need to be there with them, even when they're happy. Celebrate with them.
That's so beautiful. That's coming from a place of emotion is reactive, and coming from a place of sunnah is responsive. The response should be Muhammadun Rasulullah with وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. He is a mercy to all the worlds, man.
Yes.
That's a really beautiful and unique perspective and subhanallah story. What's the next steps for you now? I'm assuming your family is with you in Australia, back in Australia now, or?
So just my wife is in Australia with me.
Okay.
My
family, by the way, as Arabs, احنا الغزازوة, احنا from Gaza. Out of respect, we don't say even sometimes the word wife. We say عائلتك or families. That's what I meant. Forgive me. So you're living there now in Australia?
Yeah, living in Australia.
Okay.
My parents and siblings are in the UK.
In the UK, all right. And what now for Dr. Muhammad? What's the next steps moving forward?
So look, I've been trying to push the world to listen and I'm trying to, bring in healthcare into Gaza, bring in a hospital into Gaza.
Dude, subhanallah that you mentioned. That was my father's dream before he passed away. Is like, actually, I'll tell you more about it later, but go on.
So, look, people are dying on the floor. These kids are intense. There's no antibiotics. Maggots are growing out of these wounds. There's nothing to clean them. The people are dying. Children are dying when they're in medically induced comas because we're running out of oxygen, because generators are failing. And what we need is we need something to answer this. And the way to answer, and we've got 12,000 children waiting to be evacuated out of Gaza. And how many are being evacuated? How many? How many visas has Canada granted to take children in? It's a handful.
Minuscule, yeah.
Right? So, and then you've got the ones that were evacuated to Egypt who didn't receive any treatment and are begging on the streets. We have people from Gaza who have cancer in Egypt begging on the streets while the cancer kills them slowly. So I'm looking at this humanitarian catastrophe and I'm thinking, these NGOs, the Israelis ban them at a whim. If they're not complicit in helping the Israelis or doing what the Israelis want, they ban them. So what do we need? We need governments to do this on a government level. They've banned the UN. They ban NGOs whenever they want. They kill the doctors and nurses that are there. They've bombed every hospital that are there. So I've been trying to go around the world and I've been trying to lobby these governments to work together to open up a gate so we could bring in a mobile hospital into Gaza that can meet the demands of the people there in Gaza right now. And that's what I've been doing. And, look, it's been one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, because I'm walking into a room. I don't have a major organization behind me. I'm not this, when I started, I wasn't this name that people knew. I was just this young doctor. And I'm walking into a room with world leaders. And they're looking at me and it's a cold room. They're thinking, what's this guy think? And I have to sell them this idea in a way where I give them a political win if they do this. And that's why I've been, doing all these interviews and socializing the idea to the public, because it's the pressure from the public that will get these governments to act. I'm going around and I'm strategically getting governments that have worked together in the past to sanction Israel, to sanction certain ministers, to recognize Palestine as a bloc. And I'm going around and I'm getting these governments to hypothetically agree to bringing in a hospital into Gaza. I've got the Irish government on board. I've got the Australian government who have said, if you give us the right partner, we'll do it. I met with Canadian ministers yesterday.
Oh, Sean.
I've met with British ministers and foreign ministers. I've met with the Australian foreign minister. I've met with the Irish president.
What would you say is the biggest blocker to get this going? Is it more financial? Is it the logistics there?
It's not even financial. It's the political will, right? It's the political will, and it's who's going to back this. I've already got a plan and a design that's been there, that's been mapped out of how it's going to be built, where it's going to be built. The infrastructure is there. All of this, I've presented this to the governments. I've made their job easy. I have given them the proposal for what this hospital will look like, how it will look like, how it will help. I've coordinated and spoken. None of these governments are going to turn around and say, oh yeah, you're going to Canada, let me make a phone call and get you a meeting with the foreign minister in Canada so you can propose this idea. No one does that for me because I'm not a major organization. I'm just Dr. Mo. So, what do? I come and I'll be a keynote speaker at a major charity that has connections with things. They ask me, do you want a speaking fee? And I say, no, I don't want anything. I'll do it all for free. But please, get me a meeting with one of these ministers. Let me just walk into a cold room.
Have you tried to bring the various doctors that went into Gaza, the likes of Dr. Ben Thompson and others? Have you tried to work together?
They've been supportive of this, but it's like I say, it's what the first stage that I'm in is trying to get these governments to say yes. Once they say yes, then I give the Canadian.
Sounds like you might be waiting a while with the governments.
Yeah,
working from top. That takes time.
It takes time, but also as well, like
perseverance.
It needs perseverance. It needs, and look, I've been criticized so much by even people within our. Why are you talking to governments? They're all complicit in this. I know they are. I know I'm not stupid. I was there. I've seen the complicity, right? But also as well, I don't want these children to die. I don't want these lives to be lost.
And we've seen countries come around and change their positions.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily because they've awakened, but maybe the political angle has shifted.
It's to be there. So when the political angle changes, when the will changes, even just a little bit,
we can capitalize.
We can capitalize, and it's there. And the governments have been lined up, and they're already have all agreed to it theoretically, and then the domino will fall. That's what I've got to believe in. But
He's like, I've just got to believe in. No, you believe in it, inshallah.
Yeah,
how it comes about. Sometimes we plan and Allah has different plans. But your job is to do what you need to do with what you have and in the present situation with the right intention. And I love the fact that you brought up intention because it's, they call the science of tazkiyah, ilm al-ikhlas. The knowledge of ikhlas. There's so much, even the kalima, la ilaha illallah Muhammad, it's called kalimatul ikhlas. Some have even beautifully said it's because it's the one where when you make dhikr la ilaha illallah, you could do it with your tongue. Have you ever tried that? With your
you
lips
could be completely sealed, and you could be completely paralyzed, and that
it's happening, inside. So it's beautiful. Doctor, listen, man, I think your journey is just beginning, because you are young. You've experienced something where I feel like you're still, this is sort of stage A of a bigger plan for you. And I think we're going to see a lot more of you on the ground. Are you planning any more trips once things become clearer?
I'm planning. I mean, I was meant to go in July, but the Israelis blocked me.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd been making a bit too much noise, I think, publicly. But I'm planning on going to Gaza again, and I'm planning on going to Sudan as well,
Wow.
and raise some awareness for Sudan as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
MashaAllah. And it's needed. Especially, I feel like Sudan also nzalamat somewhat, got buried in terms of men. And this is why we have to transcend the trend. It's something I say, wallahi, just remember it, transcend the trends. Just the idea is not when it's hot. Like you said it beautifully. I say it also from a religious perspective. We're not emotionally driven. We're command oriented and driven.
Yes.
We do what we do because Allah commanded us to. Whether I feel, my sheikh used to tell me, you will never taste the sweetness of Iman.
Yeah.
Never, he says, until you fulfill all of Allah's commands in every single situation. When it's to your advantage and when it's to your disadvantage.
Yes.
Because now it's not like, because you're God, if you, when it's, bad for your bottom line, your pocket, you let it go, you're basically saying that my Rabb is money.
Yes.
Because saying it's more important to me than Rabbi.
That's true.
And that is due to weakness of yaqeen, which leads to weakness in tawakkul. We have a lot spiritually to work on as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala iftah alayk. Any final thoughts or words that you want to share before? Because I'm getting hungry, man. So I'm going to take you and spoil you. See, I don't know what your time is like, but we've got to feed you.
I like I say,
May Allah
just
forgive us. Even talking about food, well, I feel guilty.
don't lose hope. Just don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. It's like we're like the ants and we're walking on this carpet.
Yeah.
And this carpet is this beautiful mosaic carpet, and it's all these different colors. But because we're so small and we're walking on this furry carpet, it feels like we're walking uphill, and it's all black. But if you were to pick up this ant and you were just to look at it from a bird's eye view, you would see the beauty of this carpet and the patterns that it has, and how smooth and soft it is when you put your hands on it. But because the ant's walking in the black part of it, doesn't realize that darkness is what outlines the beauty of it. And we as an ummah, like, we need to understand that we might be walking through the darkness and the rough patch, but this might be the thing that is boxing the beauty. This might be the thing that highlights the beauty for us. But we just have to keep going, and we have to trust that Allah's plan, and Allah knows what we don't know. And
100%.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to walk and see how far I can take this. How many?
No, doctor, you're compared to many in the ummah. You're sprinting. You're not walking. We're the ones that need to pick up the pace. May Allah reward you. I'm so honored that we had this opportunity. Although I would have liked a longer one, but due to this being such short notice, I did have some other arrangements. But man, wallah, ma bin zahat minnak. You can't get bored. You really. When you were really describing the scenes there, it's almost like you transported me there. And I think that's also very important, because a lot of the viewers, they're limited to what they see online and everything, but there's certain things that happen behind the scenes that as doctors, I think you get a lot more exposure to. So may Allah reward you for sort of transferring those emotions and feelings to the ummah, so they can at least begin to empathize, that compassion that starts sparking and going. Really quick, Allah heal us all and forgive our mistakes. I am just a Muslim like you guys, maybe worse with my time. I don't know. Let me just see if there are anyone I have to yeah, here we go. Brother Khalid Carey, forgive me, I'm not as nuanced with this stuff. Did you have a question here? No, thanks for being you. It's just a thank you. So Jazakumullah khair for supporting the channel as well. I don't see any other paid ones that I have to respond to for now. You said your salam and done your duty. If no, okay, inshallah. I think we're good. Barakallah fikum. I did not announce this, guys, so this was very kind of like spur of the moment. So Jazakumullah khair, but it's going to be here on YouTube, so I hope you enjoy it. Shukran, Doctor. It's a true honor. And I really think you're off to great things.
Inshallah.
Even greater. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Jazakallah khair.
Allah khalik. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah, 1 second.